Hi, and welcome to Intrepid Wisdom. My name is Deborah J, and today we'll be discussing all things moon cycle, menstrual cycle, and hormones with Michelle Walsh of New Body and Soul. Michelle is a mama of two, a women's nutritionist and personal trainer, as well as having focus on working with lunar cycles and hormones. She's passionate about helping women discover their hormonal superpowers in order to live and love their best lives. Her kids think she's a white witch, and she loves a good moon manifestation as well as a big glass of a bold Shiraz wine. That sounds amazing, Michelle.
Yes. I think it just shows it's all about balance as well, because I
It
think people are
is.
quite scared when they hear as well that, oh, she's a nutritionist and a personal trainer, she's going to tell me to do this and then she's going to judge me and my food diaries. And absolutely not. It is about living your best life and finding balance and for
Yeah.
you to do that, and as a mama of two, my balance has definitely changed from maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I think it's really important to kind of not kind of put yourself in a box or these glass ceilings. It's really about meeting yourself where you are right now, because where you are right now is going to be very different from where you are in 3 months with everything that's going on at the moment, 6 months, in a year. So I think it's really, really important not to put too much pressure on yourself and just thinking about, well, will I be happy with how I am in 3 months? That's kind of how I ask. And is there anything that I can change, or what can I do? So having that big glass of big bold red definitely helps me on some nights.
Absolutely. It helps me as well. So
Yeah.
we connected, essentially it was more to do with the kind of lunar aspect, the lunar cycle, the hormone aspect of things.
Mm.
Because what I really love is with Intrepid Wisdom, the idea is to reconnect the wisdom of the generations. And I do feel, for me personally, I remember going, why isn't there a dummies book to life? I can't figure this out. And then I had discovered herbal medicine and astrology and Reiki and meditation and all these incredibly beautiful tools that are actually based on nature and the laws of nature and
Yeah.
the universe around us. And really what I want to do is bring that back into the fore. We actually have a lot of tools around us that can be very, very useful in helping us to keep our sanity. And you working with the lunar cycles and hormones, I think it's really, really important. So before we get into that, maybe
Mhm.
you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey. What was it like growing up for you? Did you have any role models? And how did you come to working with lunar cycles and hormones? Because it's pretty alternative and beautiful all by itself.
Yeah, and again, I think it's important to kind of recognize as well that where you start in your journey isn't always where you end up. I was brought up in a typical Irish family in the southwest of Ireland. We were a family of, well, we started off as three sisters, and then 9 years later after me came the fourth. But the three of us were, coming from very young parents, as it happens a lot in Ireland at the time. My mum was 19, which had me, so she had three kids on the 21. I can't imagine that now. So we were brought up to be quite, I suppose, quite tough as well in a way. We were kind of brought up as boys. If something happened, go out and stick up for yourself. If you want something, go out and get it. So we were brought up very like that in a typical sort of Irish Catholic family. And I suppose at the time I didn't realize the whole holistic aspect of it, because it was just a normal kind of thing with my nan. So my nan was a very spiritual person, as in, the Angelus came on at 6 o'clock. You may know this, and
Oh, I
it
know
was
it.
silence at meal times. You say your prayers before dinner. But even back then, even before now, the fancy word manifestation came into it. My nan would write things down on pieces of paper of what she wanted, and she would fold them up and put them behind, the holy sacred picture and things like that. And we didn't even know what manifestation was back then. That's only kind of been something people talk about now, but even back then, that is something that people did. It just wasn't put into a box like manifestation and things like that. My nan was very, very spiritual. I think that's where I get it. I don't know if people kind of know Irish history and banshees, but a banshee was normally heard when kind of a person was passing over. London Life, sorry
There's
about that.
there's a
That was,
banshee right now.
yeah. So I think I definitely, as I got older, as I was saying to you earlier, I don't know if it was almost like a gene switch on. Suddenly, I just started getting very in tune with things. Manifestation, even though it was a manifestation, just thinking about what I wanted. And I suppose my whole journey kind of into women's health and fitness came from a very different side. I had 5 years of miscarriages, including quite late ones. So there was live births as well. So, you know, for me, I'm very thankful that I was brought up like that, because even a lot of people I speak to kind of think I would have just given up by then. But no, I had it in my head. I want a baby. I would always have that clear picture of my head. I'm going to become a mum one day. I did everything I could through food to support my body with what was going on. And I think it's important to point out as well that people say, oh, so you had your babies just through hormones and food. No, I did have some medical intervention because of the issues that I had. But it was so important that I was able to support my body and my hormones with food, with my mindset. Like you, I did acupuncture, which I think was incredible. I use a lot of herbs as well. And just that mindset and that vision, I think and I think that all stemmed from me growing up as well, because I don't think if I hadn't had that drive and that get out and get there what you want, and just having that vision, I never would have had the courage, really, I think, to just persist. I would have given up, I think, you know, which a lot of people unfortunately have.
And
So
it's beautiful because you know, your persistence where there are a lot of people having fertility issues, there's a lot of people having issues carrying full term. We're living in a different world than years ago. Like, life is so quick, it's so fast, it's so stressful. And women are also in the working world. Years ago, they were at home and they were nurturing their families and caring for their families at home, and their stress levels were a lot different than what they are today. And you had mentioned something about, you know, working with your hormones and with your menstruation and not against. And I actually feel that's so important, because I think as women today, we've gone out into the world and we've gone, okay, we've had to fight for our place, we've had to fight for our rights, and we're in the workplace and we've toughened up so much. And that toughening up of, which has been a survival, I think has also, it started in our mind and it's ended in our bodies. And it's actually made us more, maybe perhaps more masculine, maybe more hard on, you know, our edges need to be softened. We need to nurture our feminine side more. This is not about femininity or feminism. It's more about femininity. But it's exactly what you're saying, because you were brought up, you know, with a tough mentality, and you've come right back to the soft edges.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, I think it's important. It doesn't matter. You talk to different people about their upbringings, and I always believe, you know, my parents did the absolute, and I think we're always trying to do that. I'm sure my kids will say, my mom was a bit tough about this and a little bit tough about that. And I can definitely see some of the values that my parents, especially my dad, put into me as a kid. And I can definitely see that, how I treat my daughter and my son. I kind of suppose have that in my head. It is, you know, a tough world, I suppose, out there, and I want them to have that courage. But I also, with my kids, we do grateful every night. So we don't do our prayers, but what I do kind of instill into them is that, what were you grateful for today? You know, so instead of prayer, we do that. I think it's important as well for them to remember, well, even if it was something simple, I had a lot of fun today because I was able to go to the park, because I think for us, we kind of got into adulthood, and, you know, we're so conditioned by them with things that we're really trying to implement those habits. Whether, for me, I take some things on board that my family did do for me, but I also take the things that I feel that I kind of missed out on a little bit. And I definitely don't force things on my kids. It's a choice. But things like being grateful, and almost like you said, you need that balance of being yin and yang as well. I think, like you said, women are now back in the working place. Stressors are very differently. Back then, it was more about getting food on the table, shoes on your feet, you know, for a lot of people in Ireland. Now it's about, you know, balancing work. And the majority of women are working mums, but they're also the matriarch of the family. They're the ones looking after the school runs, the lunches, you know, the school applications. So the stressors are huge. And we've seen the increase in fertility issues, you know, tenfold in the last 10 years. Obviously, things back then were still around. You had miscarriages and you had things. But even if we look at the rates of things like endometriosis and polyps and fibroids, the increase that we've had compared to 10 years ago, and things that influence stuff like that, obviously, are environmental factors, pollution, stress. It has a huge impact. And that is because the role has changed in women. You know, and that can be mental stress, physical stress, environmental stress, what we're putting on, you know, it's all about aesthetics these days, what we're putting on our skin, what we're pumping our faces with. So that is going to influence our bodies. And I think my goal as well is, I started obviously with the fertility issues, and that's where my background came from, of how I got into working with your body, because your body has so much wisdom in it if you listen to it, and it has always been there. It's just about, listen, we can get in touch with our femininity, and like you said, it's not about feminism, it's about, you know, I'm a pretty strong woman and I've been brought up like that, and I bring my kids up like that, but there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable and saying, listen, I need a little bit of help, and I need to get my stress under control, because it is going to influence everything else, my relationships, whether that's at work, with your family, with your kids. So, you know, it's not seen as a negative thing to look after yourself. It's going to help everything in your life and create balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing as well, like, you know, women, when we're in the working world, we have periods every month. We menstruate every month. Some of us have a fine time with it, and other people really, really suffer. I really, really suffer at times really badly with it. And yet we have to trudge through and get on with it, because, you know, we can't be perceived to be weak, or we can't be perceived as, oh, she's emotional or she's hormonal, or, you know, and I think we live in a society where we have had to put that on the back burner, and we've actually had to put our you know, these things that we go through on a monthly basis as something in the background. Push it away. You know, I've got a deadline. I can't have my period today. I've got a deadline. Or I'm feeling really emotional and really vulnerable, and my boss is speaking really negatively to me. And yes, I want to go to the toilet and cry. But like, that's just how we feel, you know. But I often wonder, what's your opinion on, I've often wondered, do guys have the equivalent of a period?
Well, the thing is with women as well is, I think we've all been brought up like that. And I mean, we never got spoken to. I don't know about you and periods, but basically I remember, it's almost like my mum knew it was coming. I can remember I was 12 and a half. I even remember I was exactly 12 and a half. It was the 22nd of December I got my first period. I even remember this because I was exactly 12 and a half. My birthday is 22nd of June, Cancerian. So I even remember, and I can remember a few weeks beforehand, a period book was pushed under my bed. So this is how even I can remember my first experience of my period. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's what our parents did. You know, it's not something the fathers didn't come in and do it. It was almost like a taboo subject. It's almost like something, look, you've got it, and here's the book, and, you know, that's our experiences. When I mean, the story is changing now, because women are kind of going back, okay, there's nothing wrong with getting back in contact with my body and tapping into that. It's about tapping into what's going on. You know, our hormones, they rise, they fall throughout the month, and, you know, our emotions are very different through the month. They're heightened at some stages, we feel more balanced at others. Men work more on a 24-hour clock. It's why men's testosterone is higher in the morning. It's why their libido is higher in the morning. So it's very different. Whether women work on a 28-day-ish, obviously 28 to 35, whatever your cycle is. So our hormones are fluctuating throughout the month. Compared to men, it's more 24-hour cycle. So basically that's why you get more men who want to have sex in the mornings. So as women, and it's same with exercise and food plans, you know, people are constantly following this male form of training or this masculine form of eating and protein, when, guys, we're women, we work differently. And it's about, if you can tap into what's going on with your body and use that even the week of your menstrual cycle, because all of it is telling you something. When you say you have, and I work with women obviously even at the minute, who, the majority of women I work with are kind of as well, kind of that early 30s, kind of coming into mid-late 40s. So hormones are very different, say, from their 20s. Suddenly, we all know what menopause is. You know, people think of it as when we get 50, but perimenopause can start from early 30s, mid-30s, or normally that 10 years kind of before our menstrual phase. And that brings a lot of change as well. You know, different emotions, your periods are very different, but it's about tapping into the wisdom of your hormones, because, you know, we menstruate, obviously, just to kind of give you a little bit of an indication. So day 1 to 5, 7-ish, you know, whenever you bleed, that is your menstrual phase. So that's when you bleed. It is a time for letting go. If you think of what's going on in the body, we are shedding. So what we think about, and if you're following the moon cycles, like we have a passion for, that would be the time, if you were in sync with the moon, of the new moon. So that would be day 1 of your period.
And
so
the new moon, just to add in, because, you know, it took me a long time to figure this out. New moon, there's no moon in the sky.
No,
it's the opposite of the full moon, essentially. And currently we're in the new moon of Virgo. So yeah, sorry, continue.
No, exactly. And that's what I mean. I think now that we've just planted the seed, a lot of the time women, they're like, they'll kind of maybe today dismiss us and think, oh, but we've planted that seed, Deborah. So people are automatically going to start taking notice whether they want to or not. And if we think about the moon, there's darkness in the sky. That's exactly what it used to be. Back in ancient times, women used to actually just lock themselves away together and bleed together because they spent so much time together, they were in sync with each other, that they used to just, the tribe would come together and they would almost like, it's about taking a step back. It's about filling up your cup during your menstrual phase. If you think of what's going on, the majority of us feel very low energetically and we feel very tired. And if we think what's going on in the body, we're shedding blood. So we want to replenish what's going on. We want to make sure that we're topping up our iron levels. We want to make sure that we're topping up our vitamin C because it enhances the absorption of iron, and filling up our minerals such as zinc. And that is what I kind of work with women. It's about tapping into your body, because what your body needs throughout the month is very differently. You're either balancing hormones, detoxifying hormones, and we need certain nutrients from food to allow our bodies to do that. And when people say they have terrible periods, and this is what I work with women on, it could be libido, it could be low energy, it could be, you're crying one day and then you love the world the next. These are your body's breadcrumbs. These are normally indications they're telling you, because your body is screaming at you, listen, I'm telling you what's wrong. I'm giving you these breadcrumbs in order for you to do something with it. And I absolutely understand the majority of women I work with, they're saying, I work 9-to-5 jobs, I have kids. Guys, I absolutely get you. I live in a very busy life. London, 2 kids, 2 preschoolers, 3 and 4. We have a very busy life, but it's about progress, not perfection. It's about just fitting in the little things. And that's always when I work with clients, like, okay, this is what we need to do. And even if we can do 20% right now, 30%, it's about meeting yourself where you are right now, listening to your body and just working with your hormones. If you're having really bad cravings and bad periods, well, maybe we need to start looking at your estrogen, progesterone levels. Maybe there's an excess of estrogen, not enough progesterone. Maybe we need to look at managing your stress. Maybe we need to take some of those HIIT exercises out and put it in a yoga session, because maybe there's too much stress going on in the body, because exercise is a stressor as well. It's not just about, mental stress or, environmental stress. It could be stress from over exercising. So I think it's really important to just tap into your body. And also the one piece of advice for people I would say during their menstrual phase is journal, because a lot of feelings come up during our menstrual phase. We feel a certain way, and it's not about dismissing those feelings. It's about saying, okay, writing those feelings down. And then during the next phase, which is almost like when we look at full moon, that's the time we kind of we check in. What are the goals we set on the new moon? We're checking in during the full moon. Are we on target with them? Is there anything that we can do kind of right now? Do I need to put that meeting somewhere else in? Do I need to create an hour space maybe on a Sunday to set me up for the week? So it's about checking in with yourself, because whatever feelings come up during the menstrual phase, they're normally feelings that we've kind of been restricting and keeping kind of, as women, we drudge them down, don't want to think about it, they're not fitting into our life. So during the next phase, follicular and ovulatory phase, when our self-confidence is at an all-time high, and that is the time then we can create action to it, because our confidence is higher and we're feeling better. So it's not about thinking of our menstrual cycle and phase, especially the week we bleed, as a negative things. It's about looking at what's going on, because they're the things that we keep hidden down. They're starting to resurface. And if they're coming up month by month, every month the same feelings, then it is time for us to start going, right, I need to create some action here, because it's affecting me and how I'm living my life, and I'm not living my best life.
Yeah, and I know from herbal medicine and from the homeopathy side of things as well. Do you know, when you're having a really, really tough menstruation, tough period, and maybe you're getting a lot of PMS, a lot of mood, a lot of crying, or even just a lot of pain, it can just even be pain by itself. What I've learned and what I've understood is, it's not that, we get it that at this time of the month. It's actually, that's under the surface, and it's actually there throughout the month, except when you have your period, when you're menstruating, it's exacerbating it, it's amplifying it, it's making it louder for you to see, oh, this thing is going on with me. And I've definitely noticed for myself, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there who are listening who will feel the same, but when you've had a really tough, stressful month, generally the period is actually it's actually quite difficult depending on how balanced your hormones are. But I know for me personally, when I've had a really stressful or a very, very emotional month, I can pretty much be guaranteed that my period is going to be really, really painful.
Yeah.
And it's the clearing. It's literally like we're clearing those emotions.
Yeah.
So if you were looking at, for argument's sake, say, I want to do two things. I want to talk about how we can sync our menstruation with the moon, because you're saying that we can, which is quite interesting. I think a lot of people would see it as being, you get your period when you get your period, but you're saying that we can actually get back to a more rhythmic cycle. And then also to talk about, if we're in sync and talking about, say, starting at the new moon and working all the way through to the full moon, what can we expect in each phase? What can we do in each phase? And how can we nurture ourselves in each phase?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to talk about kind of syncing and stuff as well, I think it's kind of like the laws of attraction. And you would be familiar with this. It's almost like, it's a bit like when I wanted to get pregnant. And suddenly everywhere I looked, there was pregnant women. Now, there was probably pregnant women always around me, but suddenly I'm just starting to notice, because it is something that I want so badly, that I would just see pregnant women all the time. Now it's the opposite. Now I'm like, actually, I don't see many pregnant women. And that's probably because I'm like, I don't want to be pregnant. So it is about the laws of attraction. Yes, two is my limit, Deborah. I'm very happy. So that's my balance. It does, I mean, if we kind of go back to olden times as well, again, just because the awareness is created as well, so you're getting in touch with the moon. So little things you can do is even the amount of light, even going under a full moon or a new moon, going for a walk in the evening, just being out there, trying to have as much less artificial light as you can, trying to get as much light from natural light as you can. Even things like, walking in nature, thinking, reading, keeping it on your calendar as well, and putting those things in. So, about journaling, I always say, day one, it is about setting intentions for the month. So you are using the moon as an actual indicator for what is going on. So you're setting on your calendar, day one, I'm going to start, whatever your goals, whatever your intentions are. I mean, I have my partner, and I don't know if any of his friends will be listening to this, so he's safe, but I had him on the roof here with our sage, lighting our sage. So yes, we have a little roof that we go up here, and he said he wasn't coming up, and I said, well, it's 10:36 that it's at, so I'll be up there if you want to come up. So basically I was up there at the stage, we both sat up there in our tiny little, it's basically enough for us to sit with our little notepad, writing our intentions for the month. And just, it can be your own little thing. This is the thing, there is no rules, guys. It is just about letting your heart and your imagination go, and don't put this glass ceiling on you. Just, that's the thing as well. It's about, we kind of think, if I had enough money, I would do this. It's not. If you had no limitations, what we do, write down your intentions, and just allowing Mother Moon and that connection as well. It's that psychological thing that we're doing as well. And then during the full moon, what I do is I kind of check in with myself, and I'll put it on my calendar, full moon, what were my goals? Am I on target with these? And it could be as simple as I'm going to get 3 yoga sessions in a week. I want to up more water because my energy, I want to have a date night, whatever it is. There are no rules to what. Maybe it's health that you need to look at. Maybe it's your relationship this month that you need to put a bit more focus on. So I always think about picking 1 to 2 things that would move the needle for you. Like anything, you start thinking about too much, it doesn't happen. You're better off thinking small and often, as opposed to big goals less often. So just connecting yourself and allowing yourself to let Mother Moon guide you. So they're all little things. Walking in nature, because our bodies are like the tides. They are constantly in ebb and flow and things like that as well. So reading books about it. So it's just about having it around you in your life. Like I have a book, Moon Spells, at the moment, and I love it. I just think it's fun as well. In terms of what's going on in the body, so I said about the menstrual phase, and everyone has different symptoms. Like you said, some people have just pain. Some people really notice energy levels are really, really low. And it's about tapping into, don't force yourself to do. I'm very low energetically during my menstrual cycle. I'm tired, so I really don't want to be doing head sessions. So it's about going for light walks, doing light yoga, especially the first 1, 2, 3 days. You might find your levels then are still, because our hormones have completely dropped. We are shedding. So filling up your cup, journaling, writing down what feelings are coming up. So then in the next phase, our follicular and ovulatory phase, we can kind of tap into it. And especially if they're the same things coming up month by month, you know, I'm not happy with this, my confidence is really low because of this. Well, why? And is there anything that we can do to put action into stopping that happening every month? So don't just dismiss these feelings. Use the menstrual phase for what it is. Just like the moon retracting from the sky, it is a time to just retreat back into yourself and tap inward, fill your cup. Food wise, like I said, filling up with iron and zinc, especially replenishing what's already happening. And if we think about what's going on, we always want that comforting kind of phase as well. And that's when we kind of go back to the soups and the stews and root vegetables and things like that in a menstrual phase. So they're a really good addition as well. And if you are someone that suffers from a lot of pain, reducing as much inflammation in the body as you can. So maybe looking at the amount of dairy and wheat you're having around that time, because obviously when I'm working with clients, we look at the breadcrumbs because every client is different. Not everyone has the same symptoms. So we're very much tapping into what is going on and your personalized breadcrumbs, which is why I always advise, because something worked for Mary at the desk next to you doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So be very, very aware of that as well. And that's why I don't like just these sometimes general, they're a really good guide, but it's important as well that you kind of look at your own breadcrumbs. Then the follicular phase. So basically then estrogen is starting to rise again, testosterone is starting to rise, and that's the testosterone is what causes that spike as well in our libido during the ovulatory phase. So if we kind of think of what's going on, basically it's about follicle growth, follicle development, hormones are starting to grow. This is the time as well that suddenly our energy is starting to come back up. So usually with exercise, you can start to increase, you can go on your hikes, faster runs, basically listen to your body, it will tell you. But normally we're feeling a bit better energetically, so you can go for that more intense work as well. I always advise things like good fats and vitamin E during this time because we want to support follicle development and healthy follicles, and that's what's going to help with that. So lots of avocado, nuts and seeds. Our appetite tends to decrease around that time as well, and it's the time as well that our brain, our left and right side of the brain is just on fire. So we're very much about, you know, multitasking and project managing and planning, and that's why it's a really good time to reflect back on what's happened during the menstrual phase and take a look at those feelings. This is the time to do it. You know, sweet potato, avocados, all that sort of food as well. Then what's happening is we're moving into our ovulatory phase. That's normally the shortest phase. Normally for people, it's about tapping into your body. They don't know, when am I ovulating? You'll see a change in your cervical mucus as well. If you kind of think about it, Mother Nature, you know, has cause that spike in testosterone as well and luteinizing hormone because it wants us to have babies, which is why we feel sexier and more confident at that time. You know, it's Mother Nature's trick of doing it for us. But also it's the time, I always say when I'm working with clients, we don't always have control over our whole diary, but when you can, this is the time to put in those difficult conversations because we're more confident with it. Whether that is if you're in charge of a team or you need to have a difficult conversation with your boss, it's the time for networking. I always try and put networking and talks if I have control of my diary at this time because I'm more, you know, I don't really want to do it in my menstrual phase. I'm feeling a bit like, procrastinating, but this is the time to do all of those things. If you want to join something new.
Around what time is that, Michelle? What stage? So you have your bleed on your first day, and say
Yeah.
it's
When you
if
finish
you're
your
very
bleed.
lucky, it's on the first day of the first moon, for argument's sake. What stage are you at then when you're at your most confident? How far in?
So most people ovulate again. When you stop bleeding, normally then it's your follicular phase. Then when you get to the end of your follicular phase, that spike in luteinizing hormone then causes you to ovulate. That is normally for women between 12 to 16. Again, everyone is very different. You might say someone who has ovulated 18. That is where kind of my free download comes into it, that you can track your cycle and start putting in little things. I feel really confident today and these last few days, and so I'm getting a lot more mucus. And if you really want to find out, you can do what I did because I was trying to get pregnant. I use ovulation sticks. So normally I usually tell people it takes about 3 months minimum to kind of start balancing your hormones, to start really recognizing signs, because you need to every month kind of track what's going on. And that's why it's a really good indicator, because you might see day 12, my energy was really high, I felt really confident, and then you can see day 14. So that's where tracking comes into it, because everybody is different. It's listening to how your energy is, your body's breadcrumbs, and when you track month to month, you start to see patterns. And then you can go, actually, I really do ovulate. I know I ovulate between 12 and 14 because I'm really confident. I feel like socializing. Fantastic time for networking. Really good time for setting date nights and even time out with your friends, because that's just what you're feeling as well. I always say it's the time as well, if you wanted to try something new, it's the time to do it, because when we try something new and then we really enjoy it, maybe that we've kind of been putting off, then we've created those neural pathways. I really enjoyed it, but we were in the mindset to enjoy it. So you're more than likely then going to stick with it. So then that's the shortest phase as well. Then during ovulation, there's a big spike in hormones. So we want to make sure that we are excreting and supporting and optimizing the hormones. So we want to make sure that we are optimizing our progesterone, because your first half of your cycle is very estrogen based. In the second half, we get that spike in luteinizing hormone. It's that progesterone, which is like our antidepressant hormone. But the problem nowadays is we are so estrogen dominant. We see it, estrogen dominant issues, fibroids, endometriosis, painful periods, acne, PCOS, which are very estrogen dominant, breast cancer. These are very estrogen dominant conditions. And sometimes it can mean that we have too much estrogen in the body and not enough progesterone, or it could just mean that we're not excreting our estrogen and then our progesterone. So we could have enough progesterone, but our estrogen is so high, it's just not in balance. So we want to make sure that we're promoting estrogen detoxification. And during this phase, we kind of do lots of cruciferous vegetables. So get as much green leafy kale, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all those foods as much as you can during this phase. It doesn't matter that the foods can't be eaten throughout the different phases. We just want to make sure that we're really optimizing during those phases and supporting our liver, because our liver is detoxifying all that, supporting our gut and bowel. So if someone's having real issues with gut health and constipation, I'm really looking at the amount of fiber that they're having, because otherwise those hormones are recirculating and going back into your bloodstream. And that's when we start seeing those breadcrumbs, painful periods, water retention, which are another sign of low progesterone and things like that. So our body is very, very good at giving us the clues, which is what I do with my clients. Is we start looking, we go through all the body systems, because it's never just one thing. We want to join the dots of what's going on in the body. And then the last phase is the luteal phase. It's normally the longest phase. It's normally the phase that if people find it so overwhelming, I say start off with the luteal phase, because it's the phase that we normally see the most PMT symptoms. It's normally when our moods really start to get up and down, hangry, angry mummy, as Effie says. And it's the time as well, you know, the cravings start to kick in and all this. So again, it's about supporting our body if we're getting lots of cravings. Magnesium, it could be through a supplement or providing food, lots of green leafy vegetables, things like our quinoa, a little bit of dark chocolate during this time, lots of root vegetables and sweet vegetables, because if you kind of think what our body is telling us, it's wanting. So don't be afraid of carbs at this time. Our body mid-cycle doesn't really want as much starchy carbs. It does towards the end. So again, the issue I see is that people tend to eat the same all the time. And I'm just trying to get people to say, yes, okay, it doesn't have to be a whole diet change. It's just about supporting the body with food through the 4 phases of what is going on. So we can optimize your hormones to basically get your body into balance. Because if we don't feel good about ourselves, it does impact everything else. It impacts how we are with our friends, our family, how social we are we going for the promotion at work? Because it does affect our confidence. It affects our stress levels. It affects our confidence, because during what I see a lot as well with women is during the luteal phase, they feel all these feelings start to come up. They feel really bad about themselves. Suddenly they start just buying into these programs, transformation programs, because they're not feeling as confident in themselves and their body image. So they start just buying into everything. So I always say, look, if you feel like this, wait until the middle of your cycle to start something new, so that you're not having all these thoughts from imbalanced hormones. Wait till your mid-cycle, because even I've done it and I noticed I was doing it. So now I'm like, nope, no, you're not buying into that. You're not doing that. You're going to wait and see how you feel during the next phase. So it's just about tapping into the wisdom of your bodies now, like you said, and not just dismissing everything and not listening to it and just putting everything aside and just going, no, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to push on and I'm just meant to get on with things. No, we need to get back to our feminine roots. That is what makes us super women. That's what makes us be the head of the family and do everything, because we are better at it as well. But if we don't look after ourselves, we're going to be forced eventually to do it. You know, it's not
just
not a
beautiful.
novelty.
Like I love everything of what you're saying because it's literally going back to basics. Like we live
Mhm.
in a world where, you know, it's great because we have technology and we get to learn so much, you know, so much that we could never have learned before all in one go. But at the same time, technology has taken us into a screen and out of the world to a certain extent. And actually, yeah, if we were able to just step out of it and listen to what's happening and not blame ourselves, not be like, oh, I'm just a very
Yeah.
emotional person, or I'm a
Yeah.
very sensitive person, or you know, and it can be seen to be a bad thing. Oh, you're too sensitive and you're too
Yeah.
emotional, whatever. Actually, as you're saying, it's more to do with that's who you are, but it's also your body going, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you something. I've got a message, and I'm going to shout louder and
Mhm.
louder and louder until you start listening to me. And actually, when we start listening to our bodies, quite often that's when things calm down because our
Yeah.
body doesn't need to shout so loud anymore. Um, and
Yeah.
I
It's
just
a
love, I
strength.
love
Yeah.
the wisdom of it. It's just, and it literally is, we have a guidebook, we just don't know how to read the guidebook, and we don't
Yeah.
have the language to read the guidebook. So how often, like, you're working with different clients, as you say, with PCOS and with endometriosis and
All
um,
different.
all
Hmm.
different kind of levels. Are you also
Yeah.
working with people? What about people with menopause? So if you've gone through perimenopause, going through it, or if you've, you know, if you're in menopause, because you're still a woman after
Yeah.
menopause.
Yeah.
So how does it work with that? Or
Yeah. So the majority of women I get, it's not menopause, but it's not to say that I haven't treated with women with menopause. I think because of my journey, I think like you said, as I said, it's the laws of attraction. You attract who you attract. I tend to get women, and I really started to notice this. I tend to get women drawn to me that are that early 30s, mid 40s, and maybe because that's where my experiences come from. That is kind of my journey where I have been on. I mean, I turned 40, so it's like I think people are kind of related to that. It's not to say you can absolutely follow this once you get menopause, but I suppose my zone is that perimenopause, my issues with fertility, and I had polyps, and that has been my journey. And I think, like you said, it's a bit like, you know, there is no book of life. But if we think about it, if we, it's actually like we're just going back to the women before us. You know, we're standing on the shoulders of super women before us, and you know, thinking about my nan and writing, not be afraid to write down your, you know, your dreams and your goals and to dream big. And like I said, it is, we are really, I think it is turning. I think, you know, maybe 10 years ago it was very much about stiff upper lip, and you couldn't succeed in life or business if you were seen to be this, you know, bitch in life. But it's not. It's about, you know, that is our strength as women, that we can tap into this, but and that we can, because men's brains just don't, you know, we're very different in how we think things. You know, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or, you know, so it has to be seen as a strength. You know, if you had the choice of, you had a diary and you had full reign over it, and for women that do, that I work with, I say, right, you put your self-care in at the start of your diary, not at the end when you have all your work schedules in. If you have control, you put it in at the start. I say to my clients, right, on a Sunday night, I have a client who is totally stressed out from Monday. I'm like, can you block out so that you don't have a meeting on a Monday morning? If you have control over certain things, do you have control of where you do a networking meeting? Well, if you know you're going to feel confident and amazing during the middle of your cycle, and then if you put it on at the start of your cycle and then you knew you weren't feeling as good and then you came away, then you beat yourself up about it, then that affected everything else. It's just, if you think about it, it's not rocket science. It's just about clever project managing. And
mm,
you know, and going back, like I said, to, you know, plant medicine and food and how we used to go, you know, women years ago. And even with, you know, if we think about how they use women and used to live in tribes, and going back to the magic of the moon, they used to menstruate together and block out the rest of the world, come in, walk on the natural light. Because like I said, nowadays we have a screen for this, we have a screen for that, we are just totally disconnected with nature and the moon and what's going on. So people think, oh, how am I going to get in sync with the moon? It's very simple things. Go out for a walk, turn off your screen, have as much natural light. I have a Himalayan crystal light in my room instead of a big electric light. It's small changes. It doesn't have to be, because people get very overwhelmed. They think it's, she's going to give me these huge changes and I can't fit it into my lifestyle. I will always work at where people are. I have women in their 40s who have no children, high-end jobs, running big teams. I have postnatal women, 6 months babies with 3 other kids. It is very different. That is why your story is very different from everybody else's. And it's really important that you acknowledge it and meet yourself where you're at. And even if you're going through menopause and you're not menstruating, then you work with the moon. Your day one of your cycle, you count it as day one of the new moon. So it's the exact same way. We're just working with the moon as opposed to your menstrual cycle.
Yeah. And you
So
mentioned as well, regarding your partner, you dragged him up onto the roof to do a ritual. I love that. But I actually think as well for men, there's two things. Like one, like I don't think it's a bad thing if we're in a relationship. I don't think it's a bad thing for our partners to kind of know what's going on for us. But we
Oh
need
no,
to
absolutely.
know. But we need to know what's going on for us. Like, how are they supposed to know if we don't know? And we kind of then expect them to row in with, however, what do you mean you don't understand? I'm emotional. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, we need
yeah,
to know ourselves in order
yeah,
for our partners to know us better, and actually for us to have boundaries and for us to be able to allow them to. Guys are not mind readers. I had to discover this many years ago. Women, guys are not mind readers, believe it or not.
yeah.
It's not, like, and if we are able to say to him, it's not a good time for me at the moment, I'm just a little bit more emotional, then they know, okay, she's a bit
Yeah,
emotional, so that's fine.
yeah.
But
You
I've
have to
also,
open the conversation. You have
yeah,
to talk. You have to talk.
and I've often said on some of the other podcasts that I've done as well, like, I feel that women have kind of subjected men into a role of being their best buddy friends, and men expect women to be one of their mates and kind of understand them. And we're expecting, I feel, a little bit too much of our partners to be like our friends, and like,
Mhm.
guys to understand women and or women to understand men, if you know what I mean. I think that there's too
Yeah.
much pressure on us to blend into
Mhm.
one another when we're different. Like, as you
Yeah.
say, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And if you haven't
Yeah.
read that book, it's actually a very interesting book. But men should be allowed to be men and women should be allowed to be
Yeah.
women. And we shouldn't be
Yeah.
forcing it on each other to expect to be changed in that way. We should honor it.
Yeah.
But the best way to do that is for you to know yourself and say, okay, this is how I'm different to my partner, and to be
Yeah.
able to have a conversation about it. And most guys, I think nowadays, most guys, they're
They're
happy to buy
open to it.
Tampax now. So,
Yeah,
so they're
exactly.
happy to talk about it. I think if they can understand, it's, halfway there.
I know, I totally agree. And even I had a conversation with my partner last week. It was something about, because I have a calendar on my wall, and basically it says, Mommy, Daddy, Effie, Titus. And if he asks me something, I didn't know you had work today. I'm like, my life is on the calendar. You want to know what's going on? I have it there for you. You're a man. It is there. Even your life is on it. But we even have a conversation last week, and I don't think I told him something. He's like, I just want to know exactly what you said. But it's like, it's almost like that, men, what's the word? So you have to understand how your body works first, before then you can start allowing almost like your partner into it, if that makes sense. Because even if you, like you said, even if you can just say, look, this is the time my period is on and I'm feeling really crap about myself and I really just want a little bit of support. Maybe could you not bring home the chocolate every night, or could you not? Because I do have women who say this to me, that basically, it doesn't help them, that they're, maybe trying to lose weight and then their partners are not supporting them. So women or ladies, if you talk to them and ask them, they might actually do it. Like you said, they're not mind readers. So more than likely, if you ask them to do something or support you with some way, most men will do it. But I think as women as well, because we're so used to just using initiative and getting on with it, that we kind of just assume men do the same, when actually they don't. They're very different. And even myself and Scott are getting married next August. We've been together 15 years, and even still I am learning, lots about that. But the more you tap into your body and the more you're more in tune, then you can share this with your partner. Even Scott now understands that. He knows, okay, she's during her period and I know that she's feeling a little more cranky, so he doesn't take it as personal. So because it does affect your relationship if your hormones are imbalanced, and you have, and one of the clients I was seeing is very low libido, and that was affecting her relationship because it was making her feel less confident. But if you don't talk to your partner about what's going on, they create different seeds in their head as well. So I think it's just about opening up the discussion. And that's why I say as well, even for your children, it is about changing the next generation as well, because we obviously we're Irish, we come from a generation, a certain way of being brought up as well. And like, we take all of those amazing things from our parents, from our grandparents, and we instill them in our family. Maybe then there are certain things that we would have liked a bit more of or support with. So we create that with the next generation as well. So, nobody's perfect. I'm sure, like I said, my kids will say one day, oh, wish mommy had done this. And then they can instill those values. But it's really important that we stand at the giants and these women in the past and just bring those traditions and everything into it as well. And, you know, use the lessons that we've learned from the past as well, whether that is, you know, things that were negative and we're using them in a positive way, or taking those positive things as well. But it's just about, I mean, for me, I'm constantly learning. That's why I'm here. I don't think, you know, I think when I'm 80, I'll still be doing a course. Hopefully I'll still be around, you know, so.
I'll probably be doing the course with you because I'm
Yeah.
addicted to doing courses. But that, I think that is, I love what you're saying about standing on the shoulders of these women who've gone before, because that is it's such a huge thing for me. Like in my heart and in my soul, I can feel that. I do feel there's a connection that has been withered away to some extent, and I do feel that we are getting it back, but it's slow. And how I've actually felt about this whole thing is we have generations of these beautiful older women in our lives, and the older generation, they're not going to be around forever. We're going to be the next older generation. And I feel that, yes, while it's great to, you know, be able to research all this, there's nothing like being in contact with another woman, being in contact, human to human contact with our older women. Talk to them, talk about their experiences. Like, isn't it lovely that your nan, you had that to learn from your nan, and that beautiful wisdom that you've taken. And this information that we talk about here today can't survive unless we continue to talk about it. It can't survive unless we continue to pass it on. And it's not in books. There's millions of books. We can read millions of books. It's about human to human contact, because we actually, I feel, we pick up more information when we're physically with somebody rather than just by reading it in a book, because you're picking up energetics, and I just feel
it becomes part of you as well.
Yeah.
When you read a book, it's information, but when it's part of your childhood and you grow up with something, that becomes an essential part of you and who you become. So my children from the age of 3 will understand what gratefuls are and every night, and it won't seem like this thing they read in a book, because they're like, I've done that since. It just becomes a normal part of their psyche. And that changes things as well. Even when the going gets tough when you're older, you will resort back to that, because you just created those neural pathways as well. That's how you deal with situations, because it's not like life is going to get any less stressful. But now we have to learn, and we've shown now that we really have to take care of our bodies and learn in the best way we can and how to cope, because it will affect us physically, mentally.
And isn't it lovely, as you say, with the gratefuls every night, instead of, you know, if you're not religious and you don't want to say a prayer or whatever, it's just another word. This is the thing, we get caught up on labels, but actually it's the sentiment in behind it. And having gratitude can actually lower your stress levels. Having gratitude can actually draw and attract more positive things into your life. And I just think that that's beautiful. And it's a lovely way to end the day. It's a lovely way to wind down the kids. I'm sure it's a great way for you to connect, and also to see what's going on in their life, you know.
Exactly.
Because, you know, the family dynamic has changed so much as well. And I feel that this is something I'd love to see coming back, you know, the community rejoining, families rejoining, and even that 10 minutes at bedtime with them. That's beautiful. You know, you can't buy that.
No, and I mean, and even when we don't do it now, if Daddy puts to bed, she's like, "Oh, you have to do gratefuls," because it's just it's a norm for her now. It's not this weird thing about, you know. I say to some people, perhaps the older generation, we'll say, "Oh, we're doing gratefuls," and they might say, "What about prayers?" I'm like, "No, we're doing gratefuls, because I want my children to be brought up like that. The small things, and it could be something as simple as, I had a chocolate bar today." But she understands what grateful means, you know, because mommy doesn't give chocolate all the time. It's a big treat. And it's about the little things. Like, we are so busy nowadays, and we have, you know, work and school, but we eat dinner together every night as a family. And that is the one thing, you know. Scott goes back to work at 5 o'clock, so we eat pretty early. We eat 4:15, 4:30, but we sit down, the 4 of us, it's the one meal that we all sit down together and we eat. Because even little things like that, it gets lost. And I can start saying to my kids, especially Effie, because Tyler's a little bit too young, well, what happened today at school? What do you enjoy? It's that time. I want them to have memories when they get older, that we sat together every night, we did gratefuls. You know, one of memories of my childhood is we didn't have a car as kids, and we lived about 7 miles from the nearest beach. So my dad would have, this was before my third sister was born, 2 kids on one bike. My mom carries the other kid on her bike and the picnic box. And they cycled to the beach because we had no car, you know. And it's memories like that. And people like go, "Oh my God, you were like," but like, that was it. Well, I don't take from it, oh, we didn't have a car and we didn't have this. I take from my parents brought me to the beach. I can remember, the My Body jelly shot orange sandwiches with sand. So you know what I mean? And they're memories that I carry on. So I am all about creating these memories as well for my children as well, when they get older, because I want to take for what my parents did as well and create the small things. It's not the big things and the big holidays and,
and that's so true. Like, for me as well, like I was very lucky that I had I'd a happy childhood. I'd amazing parents, and I will say it's the small things. It's the really, really small, simple memories. It wasn't like, I don't remember what I got for my 5th birthday or 10th birthday, but I can remember things that we did and experiences as family. And I think that again, you can't buy those memories, but you can make them. And even like, they're rituals to their own end as well. But also keeping track of your menstruation, keeping track of the moon, keeping track of your emotions, getting to know yourself. Oh my God, getting to know yourself is the most precious gift you can ever give yourself. And if you can take time to get to know yourself, and if you can take time to sink in with nature and to harmonize yourself with nature, I think the rest of your life starts to fall into place as well. Like, with the women that you're working with, have you seen, when they come to you and they work specifically, say, with the lunar cycles and their, hormones and menstruation, are you seeing a knock-on effect in other areas of their life afterwards?
Yeah, well, obviously I don't see, but they tell me, because obviously I ask follow-ups basically. So I kind of recommend 4 to 6 weeks kind of after every sort of menstrual phase follow-up. And usually it could be simple as lately, I got in touch with a client. I said, right, it's been a couple of weeks. It had only been 3 weeks. I was like, how is everything going? And she's like, oh, the reduction even in things like, say, my bloating, but this knocked on her confidence because she was getting married as well. So that then had an effect, and it might be something as simple as my bloating has reduced and I'm going to the toilet more, but that affected how she felt. That affected her confidence, which meant then she felt more comfortable with clothes. So it affected how she was at work because, she wasn't covering up, with big baggy blouses. So then her confidence was higher. So she was able to, she wasn't. But then, for example, for another person, she didn't mind then going for the job interviews or putting her hand up for certain things. And that's why I say it is the small things you don't realize have the huge impact on the rest of your life. It has a knock-on effect. If you have women who have a very low libido, then it affects their relationships as well. So it spills into all areas. And the fact that you were saying as well about the best gift you can do, I always say to people, think of yourself as the biggest job role you will ever get, or the bestest friend that you are ever going to have. That is the conversations that you have. So when I talk to women, yes, it's about nutrition, but as I always say, it's fitness, nutrition, it's mindset. It's not, we have the information, it's out there. We know how to lose weight, we know how to do this, but there's a reason why certain women, they're not doing it. So it's about finding out what your mindset is as well, and those blocks that are stopping you from doing that. But it doesn't have to be huge drastic changes. It is small, simple steps. What will move the needle for you right now to have the biggest impact that would spill into your relationships? Is it that you feel really bloated and you need some help with that? Is it that you have such painful, clotty periods that you are just in agony and your energy is so low at that time? So it's about finding out, well, what is the biggest issue right now? And that's why I say journaling during your menstrual phase or day 1 of the new moon is those feelings that are surfacing, write them down and then use those in the next phase, and don't just dismiss them. It's about, using what your body is telling you, and not just, we're gone from the time now that, menstrual period is just a pain in the butt. It's about using what each phase brings and optimizing with food and mindset and exercise, what you should be doing. And that can be through herbs, it can be through, yoga, taking back exercise, maybe adding a little bit more food sometimes, not less. So, yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to journaling is something that I love because I'm a writer by nature anyway. But I know there's some people, when you say journaling, they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to write. I don't even know how to start. For me, it's like, la la la, like I could fill pages and pages.
Yeah.
But if you've never journaled before, it's as simple as talk to the page as if it was a friend. Yeah. Talk to the page as if you were just trying to get a thought out on paper. It doesn't have to be I think as well with
A
journaling, like,
novel.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a novel, but sometimes as well, and you're saying, you know, keep a track of what your intentions are here and come back to them or whatever. If even that seems too daunting, just write it. Take 1 month or take
Yeah,
once a week for a month, if it's even that, and just write down my emotions are this. I felt like crap, and you know, such and such said something to me, and
yeah,
I wasn't very happy, and I felt a bit sad or lonely, whatever it is. Just write down how you're feeling,
yeah.
do it for a month,
Good.
and at the end of the month then look back. So maybe
Yeah,
don't have to plan so far ahead and go, okay, I'm going to regimentally write all these intentions down. If you're not used to writing and journaling, even to just start by writing a few days throughout the month, look back and go, oh, I was quite
yeah,
emotional there, oh, I wasn't there, and I was more
yeah.
confident there, and you can start to see your own trend.
Yeah, you'll see your patterns as well. I also, you know, I've heard before, and it's a really nice phrase, is you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. It's
Mm.
about progress, not perfection. You don't have to, everything, you know, we always say, oh, I'll start that when the kids go back to school. I'll just lose a couple of more pounds and then I'll go to Michelle, the nutritionist. There's always a what if, a what if. One of the free downloads I've given you is the moon. And basically, if you are a bit funny about journaling, this is what I advise people to do. So you start with whatever day one of your cycle is. And even just what I use is I almost use like a key symbol at the side. It can be as simple as one letter, whatever the biggest thing you were feeling that day was. It could be S for sad, E, emotional, you know, confident, C. So what I tend to do is then I have that up next to my calendar, and it's something as simple as at the end of the night before bed, I'm brushing my teeth, confident, good day, pain. Because then you have in front of you, you don't have to go through pages and pages. You have a very simple piece of paper in front of you. It is a really great way to start. And then it's there, and you can just put it in somewhere, keep it in the inside of your wardrobe. It's a file. You can have January there, then February is the next one. And you can go, oh, I felt really emotional during, you know, day 3 to 5. Oh, that much. It was the same, because I can see there's an S, there's a C, even a happy smiley face. Whatever it gets for you to just start to become more aware. There's no rules to follow. If you're happy with a smiley face, a sad face, do that to start with. It will become part, you're creating those neural pathways. It will become a normal part of your day. Then maybe you'll be up for writing even a few words. That's what I do. I might even just put a line, you know, felt really emotional today, but felt confident, or can be just a few words. It doesn't have to be. Even if you have your calendar, you can put the same thing. It's about a step-by-step process. Some women are fine. They're ready to delve in. Some women are not. They're at the start of their journey. This is a very new concept to them. So we do need to guide a little bit more. So if it means that that's what you will do consistently, then you do that. I would rather somebody did that than say, I'm going to journal, and then suddenly they start 3 days and then it's gone.
Mm.
Start wherever you know you can be consistent and realistic, because the reason that most people kind of fall off the wagon with their goals or just kind of go back to their normal ways, because they're unrealistic with what's going on. They have, you know, families and kids and school runs, full-time jobs. They're not, this is unrealistic for them to do, but this is realistic. I can manage this. I can fit this into my lifestyle with what is going on right now, because in 3 months' time, it might be very different. You know, it's a bit like waking up early. Suddenly you just naturally get up early as part of your day. You have to start creating those neural pathways. You have to start somewhere. You know, you have to take action. Unfortunately, there is no magic wand. It doesn't matter how much action, but you do have to start taking action.
And in fairness, the fact that you've got 2 beautiful children after, you know, after a good number of years
Yeah.
of a lot of loss and a lot of pain and a lot of
Yeah.
suffering to its own end, like the fact that you kept trying, you had hope, you changed your habits. It sounds like you changed your nutrition, you
Yeah.
synced in with the moon, you did all your nutrition and exercise and a whole lot of it. And it sounds like
Yeah.
that's really the basis for anybody trying to get pregnant as well. That
Yeah.
sounds like it's you know, the small steps that people can start off on
Yeah.
to get onto that road. It's great that you've
You
been
have
on
to
that
know your
journey.
why. It's
Yeah.
really important. And when women come to me, they kind of get a bit surprised, because I always go, well, they say I want to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, well, how much and why? Or I want to optimize my hormones. Okay, why? I want to get pregnant. Okay, so that's your why. Because the going will get tough eventually. There's a reason why you haven't met that goal so far. You know, we always have to have the why, because it doesn't matter how badly you want to lose weight. If you don't have that why or optimize your hormones, you will always go back to the why. My why, even when you're crying, when I was crying into a pillow, the why was I want a baby, and crying into my pillow isn't going to get it for me, as tough as it is. I would give my time to grieve, and then I would go, okay, now I'm going to start again, because I had that why. And if you don't have that why, you're just coasting.
Yeah.
Just coasting, nothing's ever happening, procrastinating, bit of this, bit of that, and no matter what that is in life, to be honest, whether that's nutrition, exercise.
Yeah, I think the why is the anchor. The why, no matter how difficult the storm is, the why is the anchor that brings you back to center. And it's, I totally agree. I think that's really, really important. So if people wanted to work with you directly or even remotely, how do they go about doing that?
So I know you're going to give my details anyway. My company is New Body and Soul. So www.newbodyandsoul.com. You can email me at michelle@newbodyandsoul.com. I'm quite active on Instagram, with cycle syncing recipes, moon. So you can find me at New Body and Soul Mom. But yeah, just send an email. What I normally do is we just have a little, if it's face-to-face here in London, great. But I had a client last week in Canada, which we did via Zoom. So I usually have a little, we have a little chat, just like me and you are having, see if it's something. It's very important as well that relationship, because it is a relationship at the end of the day, that relationship is there. So I'm really happy to jump on a call and tell people what I do and find out a bit more about them, and if it's something that they're interested in knowing more about. But yeah.
So I'm going to put all the links below for anybody who wants to get in contact. And then also Michelle has given our listeners, those who are looking on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Those who are on the podcast will have to have a look at YouTube. But she's given us these beautiful handouts. Like, there's so much care and attention has gone into them. They're really, really easy to use. They're very kind of quick reference. There's no big, long, dramatic reading in it, and it's just very, very simple and easy to use, and they're free to download. So
it's an introduction.
Well. But it'll be a nice way for people to start. So that's a freebie for people who are looking for the freebie. The links will be below, and they'll also be on the website. So if it's been lovely to have you.
Thank you.
And I hope that we've inspired some people to take a look and just slow down and just reconnect in.
Planted the seed. We won't be out of their heads now. And if anyone's kind of monthly tips as well, you can on the website, you can just pop your email address there, and then you'll get monthly newsletter on tips and cycle syncing. So if you kind of want a little bit more of a taster, then you can always jump on and pop your name in, and you'll get a monthly email on all different topics and things like that. So it's a nice community.
Lovely. And I always like to ask people before they go, what's your intrepid wisdom? If you were to pass on anything for the generations to come to bring forward the beautiful wisdom of all these people, all these women that were standing on their shoulders, what would your intrepid wisdom be?
I suppose for me, and I try and create in my children as well, is to just dream. I mean, I think we just place ourselves in these glass boxes and kind of think, oh, well, I just have bad periods, or, my parents had diabetes, so I will. It's just about take away that glass ceiling. Don't put any limitations on yourself, and just, dream big. You never know, like using the magic of the moon and manifestation and everything. I think it's really important we just get ourselves out of this modern box that we've put ourselves into. And I suppose that's my kids are my number one priority in my life. They come above everything else. So, I want them to have the happiest, most grateful lives that they can. And I think everyone's capable of that. We just put ourselves in this box of things from our past that define us. So I think just take away that glass ceiling and just grow. Beautiful.
It's been so lovely to have you. So for those of you who are watching the video or podcast, if you've liked this, don't forget to like, comment and share to let me know that you care. To stay up to date, hit the subscribe button and bell to receive notifications. And for podcast links and free gifts, check out intrepidwisdom.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. In the meantime, stay curious. Take care.